Hello, and welcome to Uniquely UCF Sociology, a podcast production of the Department of Sociology at the University of Central Florida. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Hinojosa. Uniquely UCF Sociology is a podcast that explores the research and creative efforts of those who are doing the good work of sociology. You want to know what sociology is and what contributions sociology makes to improving our lives? Well, then you've come to the right podcast. It's Uniquely UCF Sociology. Today, I'm speaking with Shameika Daye, a PhD student in the Department of Sociology here at the University of Central Florida. Her research is focused on intersectionality, Black feminisms, racialized organizations, and racialized spaces. Shameika is the 2022 winner of the Service to Sociology Award at the Department of Sociology, and this award recognizes unique contributions that students make to the discipline of sociology. Hello, Shameika, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, thanks for taking your time to speak with us today. So let's start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. So for instance, where did you do your undergrad work? How did you get here? You know, all the good stuff.
Okay, great. So I am a UCF grad through and through. I did my undergrad here and my master's, but I am very interdisciplinary. So my undergraduate degree was in business management, and my master's degree is in public administration. And most likely you see that throughout my work and what I choose to be able to study within sociology. So that's my educational background.
That's interesting. So it seemed like sociology is maybe different from business administration. So how did you get into sociology?
Okay, so that's a great question. The way that I kind of got into sociology is that I looked at what kind of questions I was specifically asking. What I really wanted to know was what was behind some of the things that I saw within the workplace. I'm a person that works full-time. I'm a non-traditional student. So I have various years of work experience, both in the nonprofit sector and in the public sector as well. And so there are different things and different patterns that I kind of saw was happening that was beyond what was given to me as structured organizational theory and things like that. So I really wanted to look at some of the behind the scenes things, and then sociology was the field that could help me to explore the questions that I had.
Excellent. And so when you talk about things like racialized organizations or racialized workspaces, what are you referring to, and how does that relate to sociology?
Okay, yeah, great question. So for me, when you think about racialized spaces, right, like a lot of times whenever, especially if you think about organizations, I'm going to talk about specifically institutions, businesses, different systems. A lot of these spaces are primarily white spaces. They were historically created that way. There has been some advancements, through different social movements and things to try to help to make that a little bit more equal, but equality has not been reached. And what happens is there's a lot of things that are undertoned within these spaces that don't welcome people that are not of the majority in these spaces. So these are the kinds of things that I kind of look into and kind of help to direct my research questions.
Oh, fantastic. And so I mentioned briefly your dissertation work. So I'm assuming the dissertation work is based on some of this work that you're interested in doing?
Yeah, so my dissertation specifically is on the experiences of Black women who wear natural hair within the workplace. So whenever you talk about workspaces, Black women deal with a lot of misogynoir, right? Like, so they're women and then they're Black, right? Like, it's an intersection. You're not one or the other, you're both. And so when it comes to something such as hair, which is just a part of like beauty and culture, a lot of times, it's looked at very differently. You see it in the different court cases that have come out, in the different legislation, such as the Crown Act that is trying to be forwarded because of it. So although these spaces are supposed to be equal and open spaces, they are not safe spaces for every Black woman.
And that's interesting. I know that the United States military, I guess it's probably been 10, maybe 15 years ago, sort of struggled with this question about hair and hairstyle, and was very specifically focused on how Black women would be allowed to wear their hair as part of the military organization.
Yeah, so in the corporate workplace, it's been like an over 40-year of a legal struggle that has been happening for women to wear their hair either in braids, in dreads, or anything, any kind of hairstyle that is not deemed, the quote unquote norm.
Interesting. And so this is based on sort of white beauty standards. Is that correct? With, straight hair or, sort of straightened hair. And so that then creates negative or hostile spaces for people who don't have hair like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's very correct. So it's very, Eurocentric, like you said, straight hair, sleek hair. That's what's accepted. That's what's written into policy. So it doesn't really leave room for someone like me whose hair is naturally not straight. I would have to go through a process. I would have to, go through something to actually straighten it. But it does not include me in those kind of policies.
And that's interesting because then that's extra cost burden for you. That is an extra labor burden for you to adhere to these sort of non-written standards, these norms that pervade organizations.
Yeah, correct. And so what happens is that it adds additional inequalities, for Black women, especially. We talk about a little bit about aesthetic capital, and like the way that you look and actually present yourself in the workplace has to be then adjusted to some other norm that's not naturally who you are. And so that's just an additional burden on top of all the burdens that I used to read about in my business management, degree that I can now look at sociologically.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Typically when we talk about inequalities, we seem only to focus on monetary inequality or perhaps opportunity inequality, but your work suggests that it goes well beyond that, that it's much more entrenched than one might think.
Correct. And it's all these little things, that we talk about. When you think about people that talk about diversity ideologies, they kind of look at some of the microaggressions that Black women or people of color or anybody in a minority group kind of faces. And so these little things that happen, these microaggressions that occur day to day is an additional burden, right? But think about if it's not just what people say, but also how they treat you according to how you look. So this then is done daily and in different spaces, and it does add an additional burden.
For the listening audience out there that might not understand what a microaggression is, could you give us an example of that?
Yeah, I can give you a great example. So my name is Shameika, right? So that name is very closely related to my culture. And it's very closely, you can tell, by my name, what the color of my skin will be, right? So whenever I have gone into spaces, I have had my name mispronounced. I've had my name spelt incorrectly on emails. I've had people, try to call me another name that's not my name. I've been asked if I can shorten my name. All of these things are part of me and part of my identity, but the continuous happening in different spaces over and over again are aggressions. They're small. That's why they're called microaggressions, but it's the repeated act of them happening over and over again.
Right. And as you said, this is an additional burden that others don't have to bear. And so,
Correct.
and as we know, that additional burden results in things like psychological strain, can lead to things like anxiety, depression. And so it may not necessarily be overt forms of racism, but it's so entrenched in the culture that it's pervasive.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Excellent. So, what's it like to be a graduate student in sociology?
Well, being a graduate student in sociology, especially during this time, is very interesting. It's challenging at times, but also promising. I do have more conversations probably with my family about my schooling now than I ever have in my entire life. because of the fact that different things are put out there, whether it be on social media or in the news, but the way that people kind of talk about things are not really in everyday language, So having that ability to be able to break things down through my sociological training has been very helpful for me whenever it comes to being a graduate student in sociology. It also allows me to be able to understand what's going on at a deeper level and not just see the one event that's happening. I get to look at it historically, see exactly what has contributed to it, and kind of be able to explain it from there, right? So it allows us to go beyond what's the now and actually see what are the systems, the structures, the different everyday interactions that have helped to develop where we are today, and then move forward from there.
Interesting. And so C. Wright Mills, one of the, classical writers in the field, said it's about seeing the general in the particular. And so understanding how an individual is situated within these wider structures, within the wider historical context. And that's what gives us the ability to do the good work of sociology.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, so I know being a grad student can be tough. And so is there a trick for you for the work school balance that you find effective?
Okay, so let's talk about the post-pandemic Shameika. Now, Shameika, the post-pandemic Shameika would say, yes, of course. All you need is a planner. All you need is to just have a schedule and have a set schedule and create your rhythms and your patterns, and you'll be great. But when life happens, and when life happens continuously over and over again, I have learned the post-pandemic Shameika has learned how to be a lot more flexible. I am very much about the fact that there is not like having balance is kind of a myth, to be honest. There's going to be always something that kind of takes more of your time than another. So you can't really give equal time to everything all the time. So what I have done and what does work for me, I am still a systems kind of person, I guess. And so I do like to have different tools that I use. Like I use Google Calendar, Google Task. I use Monday.com to kind of like break down my different tasks that I have, but it allows me to be able to see the bigger picture, but then also the little things, so that way, whenever I am scheduling the little things and I do have to shift them around, I can see where there are spots kind of available.
Okay. So the key is just to find a system that works for you in your own life.
Yes, and be okay with adjusting it when it no longer serves you.
Because as a graduate student, and there's no doubt that there's a lot of adjustment from semester
Yes.
to semester. So I know that you are the 2022 Service to Sociology Award winner. So tell me about that. Like what's the award about, and what work did you engage in for that?
Okay, so the award is specifically, it recognizes a student that kind of demonstrates a commitment to service, either within the department, the university, the field, or the community. And I am a student that does a little bit of all of that. So what I have done, especially if I'm just going to talk about this past academic year, within the Department of Sociology, I am one of the graduate student ambassadors for the uniquely UCF Sociology Graduate Excellency Board. On that board, we help to kind of facilitate change within the department by being student voices. We are currently in the process of creating peer mentoring program because we are working on kind of just wanting to engage in developing a good community and culture within the department amongst students, right? We are all going through this process together. It's a very unique process that not everyone totally understands. So we can kind of work with each other to develop that kind of community and support each other throughout that process. Outside of that, I was also a part of the department had an inclusive language and symbolic culture committee that kind of worked on doing some updates within the department, adding some different spaces within the department as well. And I did help with kind of the beginning process of that, providing a student voices, going around, looking at the space, and working with faculty along with that. So that was a very fun and unique opportunity, because students don't always get the chance to work with faculty on something that you can see the results right away. And sometimes in academia, like seeing the results right away is not a thing. So it was something that was really fun and interesting to do. So within the discipline, I've done a couple of things. Within the Mid-South Sociological Association, there is a racial and ethnic minority caucus. And what I served in there is I was the subcommittee chair for that caucus. And what we did is we kind of reached out to the historically Black colleges and universities in our area to provide them with funding opportunities and deadlines for the actual conference. That just allowed us to be able to reach out and provide some funds for anyone that wanted to present and could present their research at the conference. And then for the American Sociological Association, I am a member of the Student Forum Advisory Board. And so what this board is a board that allows students to be able to have a voice within the association. Within that board, I was responsible for the referee roundtable session organizer. I was also the selection chair for that. And we are doing a conference workshop within the conference as well. And I am the creator and the organizer for that, as well as a member on the workshop committee. So those are a few of the things that I'm involved with.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How do you find time to attend to your studies with all of that? That's incredible.
So one of the things that I've done, and actually a mentor told me this, is to determine how much time a week you have to be able to dedicate to service, stick to that time and only say yes to things that fit in that time. And so doing that is really the best way and the only way that I have been able to kind of adjust and also decide and prioritize where I would say my yeses and where I would say nos.
Well, it sounds like you've got a real passion for sociology. I mean, you really see that in your engagement with providing funding to bring people into conferences, setting up conference sessions, working with faculty in your home department to improve the work and living space in the department so that everybody feels welcome and included. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment so early on in an academic career. You know, usually we don't hear things like that until somebody's been doing this for a couple of decades, if they're engaged. So that's really quite impressive.
Well, thank you.
So, so what are you going to do with all this? So when you get done with your PhD, where are you going to go? Are you going to go be a chair somewhere? Are you going to run a department?
Yes, all that. No. Well, I like to, I guess maybe this is the sociologist in me, is looking at things in the big picture, right? So my major research goal, not even my major research goal, my major goal is I really want my work and whatever I do is to see positive change in the trajectory and the mobility of Black women and girls, both in education and in the workplace. And when I first started this program, I believed that the best way to do that was through the academy, which was just a limited perspective. Now, like, because of my work experiences, the experiences that I've had through my different service, and then the knowledge and skills that I've kind of gained from class and understanding a little bit more, I can see that there may be other avenues that are more meaningful and have more impactful ways of doing that. So I have a couple more years left. So during that time, I'm going to use my wonderful training and observe and take notes and decide, how whenever it is time for me to go into the market, how I'm going to do that.
Excellent. So again, remaining flexible to the opportunities that present themselves.
Yes,
So
for
not
sure.
necessarily academia, but maybe the corporate world or maybe wherever it takes you. I think that's fantastic. So, well, we expect great things of you, Shameika. There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to make an impact in the discipline and on society in general. And so
Thank you.
I'm glad you're going into sociology. All right. Well, Shameika, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate your willingness to sit down with me and have this discussion. It certainly helps those who are in our listening audience to hear what it's like to be a graduate student and all the wonderful things you can do in sociology. So thank you for taking your time today.
Thank you for this time and for this opportunity.
And I'd like to thank you also, our audience, for taking your time to listen in as we discuss all things that are uniquely UCF sociology. This is Dr. Ramon Hinojosa saying thank you, and we hope you'll join us next week. Have a good day.